Fellow Africans, good day to everyone. I stand here once again to speak about African unity with the name of the People's Movement for African Unity. Many of us have spoken about African unity. Our ancestors, our forefathers, both men and women, died and suffered humiliation because of this very matter. But at the same time, it is painful to realize that most Africans don't really understand what African unity means. We've spoken about it from many quarters. We've said about it. Politicians have spoken about it. Businessmen, social activists have spoken and cried for this very moment, for this very ideal in our history. Unfortunately, people are speaking from it from political perspective only, and some speak from economic perspective, some social. People have their own view about African unity. But what I can say here is that African unity goes beyond what we think. It is not an intellectual pursuit. Like I always said, African unity is a divine plan to stabilize the world, to make the world a better place. It's not something we can pursue in front of microphone, and it's not something you can pursue by using it in political campaigns. It goes deeper than that. A lot of people have also used African unity as a means of gaining popularism. But that's not the matter, because African unity is more superior than human thinking. It's greater than ordinary concern. African unity has been put in place, as much as I know, from the revelations I got from the Divine Masters. It has been put in place thousands of years back. Most of us have seen African unity as if it's an issue of 19th or 20th century. No. It has been resounding in our mind in several quarters of the world, especially during the days of freedom fighting, that our recent leaders acknowledge the importance of African unity. But this 19th or 20th or 21st century is only meant to relive what was already put in place millennia ago. The prophet of antiquity knew about this, especially Prophet Isaiah. But the prophet Isaiah in the Bible chose to conceal it in a manner that not every person can understand it. You can go on and read the Bible many times, searching for the word Africa. You won't get it there. Yet the prophet had concealed it, waiting for the appointed time. And that time is now. I'm very happy that most of us are speaking about it. It is a sign that we all need it, and we all value what it will bring in our life. I'm very happy that you are speaking about it from many quarters, from almost everywhere you can think about. But most of us don't understand what African unity means. We don't even know what African continent and its people represents among the community of mankind. But I can assure you that those revelations has come, and it's time to realize it. African unity and its federal government and the power it is going to command in the world is not something political elite can carry out. It's got nothing to do with what money can buy. It's not in the domain of religion. There is power behind it. And that power behind it is not just meant for Africa alone. It is a power that rules the world. The leaders and manipulators of human destiny, who are both invisible and invincible, are all behind it. It is interesting to let you know that many leaders we know recently in history were all messengers of God. They are angels of their own capacity who had incarnated into human flesh to play a vital role for the evolution of the world. And all of them are in support of African unity because it was put in place centuries or millennia ago. It's not a political or economic ideology. It's not a thing of intellectual pursuit. It's got nothing to do with the power of weapons or economy or whatever we can think. It's not human. It's more spiritual, deeper than we think. Like I already mentioned, many great leaders who incarnated, let me use the ones we can quickly understand, those who are in recent history of the world. Those men are leaders of the world whom God sent to come and play vital roles for the evolution of mankind. Let me not speak about Africans here because it's a normal thing for us to know that African leaders has been talking about African unity. And as much as I can tell you, today, the African leaders we have today are not the people that can bring about African unity, even though they also acknowledged the importance of that unity and its power. You can bring all African leaders together, multiply their capacity by 1,000 times, yet if put together, cannot bring about the African unity because it goes beyond what human being can do. I'm not saying that African leaders are not great or they're not doing their best. I'm saying, and I acknowledge from the revelations I have, that the African leaders whom we are used to insulting are the most combative leaders you can see today in Africa, in the world. But they are failing to do a lot of things because the spiritual power does not permit them to do so. Like I said in one of our videos, messages, that they are working under interim period, and as such, they are caretaker government. What you see them doing now is the best they can attain. And I can tell you that their time has expired. The more they continue, is the more they, out of desperation, plunge Africa into more problems. Because it's not in their domain or power to do so. Most of us have voted leaders thinking that the greatest position in the society is to be a president or a minister. But that's not the issue. The president, according to how human classification, are administrative leaders, but they do not wield the power. The power to change event in human life lies with the divine masters. And once the divine masters permitted you, you only have to go and obtain the success, just as the people's movement are trying to do. Not just trying, we are going for it. When we say trying, it's about being humble in language, but we are going for it. We are going to be successful. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people we know in recent history of the world are all messengers of God. They came here, they incarnate into human flesh to play their role and return back to eternity. And when I'm saying about divine masters, they all at the same time do not come to the world. Many or few of them are chosen for a particular role they are going to play based on the event that is to be carried out in a certain generation in the evolution of the world. Among those people we know outside of Africa who are interested, who are in deep supportive of African unity are, let me mention them a little bit. Joseph Stalin of Russia. I had been in contact with him spiritually, and he is among the ministers of God in the spiritual world, to whom the power has been delegated from God to handle human affairs. Joseph Stalin, we know from Russia, is part and is total support of African unity as a means to balance the world. It's not just him. David Ben-Gurion, the founder of the modern state of Israel, who also is a messenger of God, is in support of African unity. Fidel Castro, we know, is a messenger of the Most High. He also is in contact with us and have endorsed African unity as a means of balancing the world. George Washington of the United States of America is a messenger of the higher order of the divine providence. He also is in contact with us and he has endorsed African unity as a means of balancing the world. Abraham Lincoln had been in contact with us spiritually. He also is a messenger of the higher order of providence. He is in support of African unity as a means of balancing the world. Chairman Mao Zedong of China is here with us. He has endorsed African unity as a means to balance the world. Adolf Hitler of Germany, one of the greatest messengers that has been portrayed badly in history, deliberately or mistakenly, is part of the project of African unity. He has endorsed it as a means of balancing the world. Mahatma Gandhi of India is also in support of African unity to balance the world. Winston Churchill of the Great Britain had been in contact. I can say he's a personal friend of mine. And when I say a personal friend of mine, I know most of you will be surprised. But it is the same thing like when Jesus Christ said that before Abraham, I was. The Israelites did not understand what that word meant. They were surprised as to why a human being can say that he was existing before someone who died 2,000 years before he himself was born. But we need to understand that human life evolves around reincarnation. The day we see ourselves on earth might not be the first day we come. We have been coming and going back and coming again for diverse purposes that serves our personal and world evolution. So when I say that the Winston Churchill of Great Britain is my personal friend, don't be surprised, because I had been in contact with him on several occasions. He is a great man. So also François Mitterrand of France, who in the spiritual world had sat down and endorsed the project of African unity. And I don't want to talk a lot about Africans like Mandela, Nkrumah, or Jomo Kenyatta. No, there is no need, because we all are familiar with those people. There are a lot of them that I cannot mention here because it will take longer than expected. All of them are ministers under the divine providence. The Supreme God has delegated the power to them, and they had sat down and decided, because they rule human affairs. They are the invisible and the invisible masters. They have decided what will happen, that it is time for Africa to unite and become prominent in the world. I'm mentioning these few names here. There are many, but I have to say few, just to let you know that African unity is not only for the benefit of Africans, it has a lot to do for the good and stability of the world. Over the years, we have seen a lot of nations rise and fall. Empires came and go. But there is something the Supreme God had put in place after long years or millennia of allowing mankind to do a lot of things. The Supreme God had decided that it is time for his children to have peace and justice after long years of oppression and injustice. And he has delegated the power to his heavenly ministers, that it is time for Africa to rise, because it was spoken about millennia ago. So when I'm standing here and telling you about African unity, I continue to repeat that I'm not the greatest of all Africans, intellectually, economically, or ideological wise, but it's something else. The divine world does not work to satisfy human objective senses. They do things in their own way. And when I tell you that the organization called the People's Movement for African Unity has been given the permission to transform Africa. Don't doubt it, because those before us came like that and succeeded in their mission. We shall transform Africa into a superpower in the world from now till 15 years' time, whatever it may take. It is also interesting to let you know that a great man like Isaiah, one of the great prophets of the Bible, is involved in African unity. Prophet Moses also is involved in African unity. There is no need to mention names here, but time will tell. We will take time to reveal a lot of secrets and interactions we have had with those men, while which we have the confidence to stand and speak about African unity. We are not political elites. We are not economic or financial elites. We command no place in the world. But like other people or other organizations who came before us, they were Mr. Nobody, unacknowledged by the system and people of their time, but they went on to perform their duty. So when I sit down here and I stand here and telling you about African unity, please don't doubt it. It is our responsibility. It is a great responsibility that the people of Africa have been given. And it will be nice if you can make it a thing of joy, a thing of harmony. It is time that Africans should demonstrate themselves as a people, not people who fight or contradict each other. Let us swallow our ego and pay attention to the great things that God has brought our way. We have seen a lot. We have suffered a lot. We have paid every price that is required for a people to be great. And it is time for that greatness to come. We are going for it, and we will be successful. African unity shall stand, and the federal government of Africa will be a power. Over the years, there has been a lot of energies that came to the world and go. We have seen a lot of evils, immorality, injustice going around the world. The power that is given to Africa to play a significant role among the community of mankind is a divine power that is made to lead mankind back to morality, peace, harmony, love that we all desire for our own livelihood. It's not something anybody can start against, and it's not something anybody can stand up to go and do. I said it earlier and I will repeat it. It's not something political power or political ideology can do. No. It's a divine plan that must be accomplished. Let me keep quiet here. We will be releasing video messages that speak more about it. Thank you, and may God bless you.